All right, GM announced yesterday it's going to close some 42% of its dealerships all over the country. That's 2,600 of them. It also said it's going to get rid of its entire Pontiac brand. What does that mean for local car dealers and customers? Probably no one else in Kansas City knows better than Stan Reisner. He writes for more than a dozen publications, has 2 websites on the auto industry. He's here in our studio this morning. Stan, welcome. I know that you know just about every car dealership in the metro to some degree. How is GM going to go about closing the particular stores here in the metro? How are they going to decide?
Well, I think it will depend on whether they can do this without filing a bankruptcy. Obviously, if they go into bankruptcy, then they can just cancel contracts. If they don't go into bankruptcy, then then obviously they have to pay the dealership something to go away. Now, Ford did this a few years ago, and if you've noticed, there's probably about a half dozen less Ford dealers in Kansas City this year as there was maybe 5 years ago. So this is something General Motors probably should have done earlier. They're going to have to do it based on some criteria.
I've heard from people in the industry that this market is already saturated with dealerships. Per capita, we have a lot of car dealerships here, right?
Well, historically, we've been known as the most over-dealered market in the United States. And I tell that to people, and they'll go, oh, no, Southern California. But it's really true. Kansas City has always had a tremendous amount of car dealers per size of this market. And the effect of that is you don't have any giant dealers. You have a couple of pretty good sized dealers, but there's nobody out here that's selling 500, 600 cars a month like there is in maybe even Dallas or in Southern California. They're all smaller, they're all very lean, they're very mean, and they cut margins pretty good. And so that's why you get a great deal here in Kansas City, because they're very, very competitive. But truthfully, it's not healthy for General Motors to have so many.
Real quick, who's going to survive? Is it going to be the big boys like the Hendricks Group and maybe Van Tile, those type people who have lots of dealerships nationwide?
That's a good question. That's maybe the big question right now. A lot of the small dealerships operate very, very efficiently because of the last bastion of the small businessman that owns his own dealership, passes it down. The big boys sometimes have trouble because if they're supposed to sell 500 cars a month and now they're only selling 250 cars a month or 200 cars a month, they have some real serious problems. But they have deeper pockets too.
Stan, I wish we had more time. Always interesting, insightful with you. For a link to his website, KCAutosource.com, go to fox4kc.com, and we've got it linked there. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you.
GM unveiled more plans today to streamline the company and steer it towards a turnaround.
The goal, of course, is to pay back half of its loan from the government by this summer. Fox 4's Tess Koppelman explains how they hope to get that done. Tess.
Well, GM had already announced it plans to phase out Saab and Hummer, but now it's also saying it's going to phase out Pontiac by the end of the year 2010. It's also going to close nearly half of its car dealerships, and the car dealerships we spoke to say it's too early to tell just exactly how this will affect them, but analysts say it will have an impact.
And Pontiac's been here for 80-some years. It's a legacy brand, and it's kind of a sad deal.
Automotive journalist Stan Reisner writes car reviews and runs the KC Auto Source website. He says it's hard to say goodbye to Pontiac, but GM's streamlining its product line is necessary.
I've been somewhat concerned with the proliferation of models in the last few years anyway. I mean, I deal with models every day, and it's hard for me to remember, you know, all the different models.
Still, almost all of Kansas City's Pontiac dealers are family-owned businesses, and this won't be easy on them.
I think there'll be some closure.
George's Imports is a Saab dealership. It's been around for decades and survived many changes in the auto industry. Brad Schaffner bought the business from his dad, George.
If Saab goes away, it goes away. I still have lots of customers to service. There are hundreds of other cars out there to repair.
He says dealers who specialize in high volumes of sales, they'll be hurting. But he's surviving by cutting expenses, focusing on quality service, and waiting for the turnaround, which will come eventually when customers feel more confident.
So they're paying off those credit cards because they don't know if they have a job. They don't need a car right now. He'll get around to it. It's just...
And you'll be here waiting.
I'll be here waiting. Always have been.
So Reisner says a big concern dealerships have, will customers buy cars like Saab and Pontiac knowing that GM is trying to phase them out? Well, Reisner says that companies will continue to make parts well into the future and that the U.S. government is guaranteeing customers warranties. Tess Koppelman, Fox 4 News Live in Kansas City, Missouri.